Good afternoon, everyone. When you hear the word patriotism, what comes to your mind? Maybe waving the flag on Independence Day or singing the national anthem during school ceremonies. Those are beautiful symbols, yes, but patriotism is so much more than that. It's not just about traditions or rituals, it's about love. Love so deep that people are willing to sacrifice their own comfort, their dreams, even their lives for the good of their nation. And today, I'd like to share with you three stories from history, real stories that show us what true patriotism looks like and why it still matters today. Our first story comes from Aceh, Indonesia, during the war against the Dutch. Tut Nyadin lost her husband, Teku Umar, who was one of the leaders of the resistance. Most people, after such a painful loss, would have surrendered, but not her. Instead, she picked up his mission, continued to lead the fighters, and carried the spirits of independence within her heart. She fought not out of hatred or revenge, but out of pure love love for her people and love for her homeland. Even when she was captured years later and blinded by old age, she never once bowed to the enemy. She never begged for mercy. Her courage reminds us that patriotism isn't only about victory or success, it's about resilience. It's about standing tall even when the world seems against you. Jutnya Adin showed us that a true patriot doesn't need a sword or a crown, just an unbreakable spirit. Our next story takes us to Britain in the dark days of World War II. The world was in chaos, cities were being bombed, millions lived in fear, and Nazi Germany seemed unstoppable. But in the middle of that darkness, one voice refused to break, the voice of Winston Churchill. He stood before his people and declared, "We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets, and we shall never surrender." Those words were not just speeches. They were fire. They were the heartbeat of a nation that refused to fall. Churchill's patriotism was not just a blind optimism. It was faith. It was courage and determination in the face of despair. He reminded the world that sometimes the greatest battles are won not with weapons, but with words that awaken courage in others. He proved that leadership, when rooted in love for one's country, can change the course of history. Now, let's move to South Africa, a land divided for decades by apartheid. Nelson Mandela. He spent 27 years behind the bars, not for a crime, but for standing up against racial injustice. 27 years. Imagine that. When he was finally freed, he had every reason in the world to be bitter, to seek revenge. But instead, he chose forgiveness. He chose unity over anger, peace over vengeance. Mandela once said, "I never lose. I either win or learn." His patriotism wasn't about hatred or dominance. It's about healing. He believed that loving your country means believing in equality, fairness, and peace, even after decades of pain. Mandela showed the world that true patriots are not those who divide people, but those who bring them together. From Tut Nyadin's bravery to Churchill's defiance to Mandela's forgiveness, each of these heroes teaches us that patriotism takes many forms. It can be courage in war, wisdom in leadership, or compassion in reconciliation. But at its core, it's always about love, the kind of love that acts, not just speaks. And today, our world faces different kinds of battles. We may not need to fight invaders, but we face challenges of corruption, inequality, environmental damage, and division. Our generation is called to fight these battles, not with guns, not with any weapons, but with kindness, honesty, and unity. We may not be called to war or revolution, but we are called to contribute in our own ways, to care for our environment, to speak up for what's right, to work hard, to be honest, and to help one another. Because patriotism doesn't belong only to the past. It doesn't end with our national heroes. It begins with us. It lives in you, in me, and in everything we choose to do for the love of our nation. And maybe one day, our small acts, our kindness, our courage, our honesty will become stories that inspire the next generation too. So now, while we still have the chances, let's show our patriotism through small acts by helping others, by respecting differences, and by protecting the world we live in. Because that is what truly means to love your country. That's all from me. Thank you.